but it was because I just got threatened. But okay, story for another day. Welcome back to my channel, Journey to Self, where we pour, where we listen, where we grow, where we meet ourselves where we are, where we unlearn, where we discover new layers of ourselves and we allow ourselves to be, where we allow God to introduce ourselves to us so that we can walk in His true expression, where you are accepted no matter which phase of life you're in, just as long as you have the desire to journey to yourself and call all the things that you know you deserve and work towards them so that they can manifest and spread the light to other people. We are here to get our wings. We are here to move from a caterpillar, transform into the cocoon phase and go through the discomfort so that when we blossom and come out into our wings, we are not going to allow anybody to bring us back into isolation or dim ourselves down. So yeah, it's another episode. And the previous episode, we were talking about doing the work, right? And wonke umsebenzi owenziwayo kumele uhlaziwe, right? So we need to know if what we're doing is yielding any fruits, is it yielding any progress? Simosha isikhathi sethu noma ikhona ngempela into esiyenzayo. So what was nice when I was doing all this inner work and journeying to myself and so on, I was in isolation. I was just dealing with me. And if anything sparked up in terms of my wounds and whatever, I had all the time and the luxury to remove the band-aid, add some tissue oil so that it leaves a faint mark. But there comes a time where you can only truly know if the work that you've been doing is honest and true if it gets tested. So kwakumnandi COVID times ngihleli facing myself, navigating and answering the questions as honest as I wanted, engaging with my family and unpacking stuff, setting boundaries, accepting certain things that were beyond my control. That was all me in isolation to myself. You know, I had some form of control in what goes out there and what I put out there, how I navigate certain things. I know the biggest reality check when I started getting out there and allowing basically the work to do what it was supposed to do, to trial and error it. I got into a relationship, right? After you heal and you are just like, I'm walking with a spring in my step. You gain a lot of confidence. You also gain not even arrogance, but there is a sense of self accomplishment. As in, I've made strides, I've made milestones, I've healed parts of me, I've really let go of a new being, and you know, even if trials come, I've got the tools to be able to to soldier on and, you know, conquer those trials or find ways to just work through them, because life will life at some point. Then you get into a relationship, you realize there's another part, you know, and that party does not necessarily have a script on how they're supposed to behave. They also have their own opinion. They also have their own experiences. They also have their own traumas. And, you know, they're still navigating life. And not to say maybe they were journeying to themselves, but you probably meet them at a space where you're like, oh no, I can get into a relationship now without losing myself. You know, I can get into conflict and be able to diffuse it maturely. But have you met your emotions? Have you met this thing called a hat? Have you met your petty self? Have you met the time of the month? Have you met life just throwing things, you know, unexpectedly, and you just like, I've got the tools. but the tools aren't toolsing because umuntu off script, mina mangikhuluma kumele ngabe, you know, siyazwana because hayibo, the work, you know? So that's one area that I noticed ukuthi, yeah, no. I mean, I'm mature, but I'm also petty, you know? And maybe I still don't necessarily like conflict, and as much as I'm very sure of myself, but there were just experiences that the relationship brought on where I was just like, I mm-mm. Off Lando, and maybe I also just maybe wanted to retreat to isolation because also what the work does also creates a cushion and a little bubble for you where you are able to okay ngiyaqhubeka manje sengimile manje when life takes over and it's testing your boundaries, it's testing the so-called patterns that you've broken. You all know that you've broken a pattern till a circumstance or an experience that you previously would have acted a different way comes, and you end up acting the very same way that you used to act, and then you're like, but no, man, the formula is this. I've done the work, so by default, the outcome should be the new pattern that we are working on. So the shock of my life was that I could literally do the work, and in some instances, I could literally react the same way that I did previously, you know? And it's a very tricky situation because it can happen that by virtue of responding the same way that you did before the work or the healing and so on and so forth, you might retract your wings to a point where you're just not comfortable with testing anything out, because it can also come with a lot of judgments towards yourself where you're just like, how but in A, B, and C. So why would the outcome be the complete opposite of what I thought it would be, you know? So I had to face those realities where I was just like, yes, sis, this thing has no linear path. You know, there are certain waves of life where you can walk into a scenario and you react exactly just like how the tools and the work that you've curated along the journey said you will. Or you can find yourself falling back into a pattern or a previous behavior that you did. So I learned to extend grace towards myself. I learned truly what a journey is. Ukuthi, there's no set path, there's no set outcome. You can literally just try to do the best that you can in that opportunity or spacing or circumstance that you find yourself being faced with. But that does not mean the work uh, didn't do its job. That does not mean that the hours that you spent facing yourself were worthless. That does not mean Uguti, going forward, you're not going to do better. It's literally like, oh snap, I didn't do that. But the beautiful thing is that now you've got the foundation of the work to help you recover faster or recover better than you previously having no tools, no foundation to work with. So I also had to come to accept Uguti, no, now this does not mean I must be anti getting into a relationship. I must be anti trying out things because I may have reacted in a manner that I sort of am embarrassed by, but I can be gracious enough to say, "Ish, okay, that didn't go according to plan, but let me open up room Wuti going forward. How can I make it better?" But relationship aside, this also can happen in work. You find yourself maybe creating scenarios in your head and you're like, oh, going forward nje ngizomtshela umphathi wami ukuthi I'm not gonna take the fall for things that he's supposed to do, and I'm gonna voice out my opinion. I'm gonna put myself out there, you know. and you step in, especially because also COVID was very isolating also in the workspace where people were working from home and then now it's gravitating to the workspace. Now you have to go back to the office. It's no longer Zoom, it's you face to face with a person where it's eye contact and you are having to, now you said you're going to stand your ground. The situation calls for you to stand your ground and you find yourself retreating and you find yourself shutting down. You find yourself losing the bounce in your step. You find yourself stuttering when you're trying to articulate your points. That once again can make you basically retreat back and you're just like, I'll just rather work from home because you're not trying to experience that embarrassment again. And I just um, want us to know with the setbacks are a part of life, are a part of this journey by virtue of that you are human, you know. But anchoring of doing the work really helps you to take the bad days. Like, I acknowledge this is a bad day, but the sun will shine again, and we'll do better, and we'll progress. And I'll go back at home and journal and unpack and be like, "Oh, but why did that? Did I get nervous?" And then going forward, you can end up showing up exactly how you had planned. It's just very important to not take the tests personally. I mean, people are always studying and taking on modules. You need to be tested with the knowledge and the expertise and the skills that you've been trying to harness and really monitor are really something that has been happening, and you are really reaping the fruits of your labor. So allow the tests, allow the exams to come. Sometimes it will be a D minus, maybe sometimes it will be an A plus, but you can always revamp and come back stronger. That's what the journey is. Once you do the work, you know better. Therefore, you want to compel yourself to do better. So imagine caterpillar moving to cocoon, withstanding all the discomfort, withstanding all the growing pains, withstanding basically anything that could have forced them to move back to being a caterpillar, which you really just can't. And you eventually progress to being a butterfly and you've got your beautiful wings. But because life happened and circumstances happened, as they will always happen, now you want to say, no, please just clip my wings, put me back into a cocoon, let me go back into isolation. That's just not how life operates. As I've mentioned before, there's layers to you. And sometimes the layers may need a bit of pruning, and sometimes the layers may need a bit of polishing. And sometimes the layers are just blossoming and thriving, but you can't want to clip your wings just because a bit of rain came and took away a bit of your color. You'll go in shelter, wait for the storm to ride itself off, and then you'll come out and still fly into your greatness. It's just important to always create environments that allow us to be ourselves, but at the same time allow us to be accountable for how we show up and approach certain environments and certain spaces. So when I truly started introducing myself as the Fanele that has done the work, the Fanele that has journeyed to self, and now I'm even opening up a podcast and sharing, um, I would have experienced a lot of setbacks, and to some degree I still do, because you also realize, Guti, this work releases or unleashes certain wounds you didn't even know you had. And it would be a disservice to Wuti just because now you're picking up new things, you want to retreat and never want to explore life. Life is to be explored, life is to be examined, life is to be tested. Just like every area is audited in your life, um, it only helps you to be shaped better. It only helps you to be the person that shows up better and as yourself. Before I forget, I have to give you your homework. Akukho phela ukubaleka la. I also answered them internally. I feel like I've been answering questions. It's none. Shine. Today's question is: what has been your biggest disappointment? Hey, yes, this thing is. What has been your biggest disappointment in the past year? Good luck to you. But anyways, thank you so much for hopping on into this episode. I hope you don't give up on yourself. I hope setbacks don't make you withdraw your lights. I hope setbacks just allow you to be human. Just remember, Uti, God's grace is sufficient to carry you through the storm, through the sun, through the wind. You just have to navigate each season as it comes the best you can, reevaluate, do the work, unpack, journal, revisit, and then do better going forward. That's all it is. It's a journey. We got to do the work. Sizotestwa. We will conquer because we are made more than conquerors, but we will not retreat. We will fly, we will blossom. That's what we plan to do in this life, to pour out and deprive the cemetery of our gifts and offering. That's exactly what we will do every single day of our lives. So remember, share, like, comment, engage, all that good stuff. Please, if you feel like your friend would love this episode, share it to them. And so that you guys can also start having these conversations to ensure that nobody is left behind in the journey. All right? I'm out.